The Guardian slide continues. We don't know where the bottom is for this team, but everybody feels like this year is worse than last year. We'll talk about if they are or not, what is working and what isn't working. And we've also got some minor league developments to get to on today's show.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, the band is back together again. Even if the Guardians can't get their house in order, we're back together again here on Locked On Guardians. That's Jeff Ellis. I'm Justin Lada, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast that covers your team every day from the majors, the minors, the draft, everything in between. No matter how frustrating life gets, we are here for you. Whether it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. And it certainly hasn't been the Guardians' year. It hasn't been their month. It wasn't their day today, too. So we'll keep bragging on that. But on today's show, we are going to get to some minor league developments. There's some surprising stuff going on that even Jeff and I have overlooked or we're wrong about. I know a lot of people think that we don't admit when we're wrong, but Jeff and I think, have some areas to look at today that maybe we were wrong about, at least so far. We are going to get into some myth busting and what is going bad for the Guardians, what isn't, what the numbers say. And we'll talk about why the Guardians feel worse in 2026. But there are some areas where they're not as bad as they were a year ago. So we've got a lot to dissect on today's show. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com. Play daily dingers. Make your free pick from who's hitting a homer this MLB season. And let's just be very honest at the top, Jeff. This is another game where the Guardians continue to not put things together. They lose 6-4 was the final score?
Yeah, 6-4 is your final score.
Yeah, 6-4. The score doesn't matter. The game, they lost. The bottom line is they lost again. And they lost because the parts of the team continue to be disjointed. Like, offensively, it's weird. Offensively, they did enough in this game to win. They were good enough. They had more hits than the Tigers. I believe they had more. Did they have more base runners overall? Yes, they did.
They did. It came down to that Jose play at third.
Lord.
Yeah, I mean the Jose play at third. Let's be honest. If he gets it, that's out number 2. Then the runner is at first base. After the single, that run doesn't score, and then they get the third out, and it's done. So it's a 4-4 game if Jose just makes that play because Bailey had him dead to rights. So
he did,
and
but
that means
we can also go
for
back
Tanner.
and
Tanner should have only had 4 earned runs instead of 5. But yeah, I mean that one play is the difference. I mean, there's other things that went wrong. Don't get me wrong, but that's your crux point. That is the pivot for this one. And I know he had a productive out, which I've been screaming for this team to have. Like, give me a productive out with runners in scoring position. But man, I mean, I think one can start making at some point. Like when Jose had his last hamate injury, he had like one game, hit the home runs, and went on the disabled list. It's like I we'll save it for down the road, see if it goes. But I feel like Jose is maybe hurting more than harming. Or hurting more than helping this team right now. And I mean, today you can kind of lay it on his feet.
You can. It's one mistake. There are multiple mistakes.
It's a huge mistake, though.
It is, but like also let's talk about the other things too. Like in the 5th inning, you have the single to Gleyber Torres that gets things going. But before that, you have. What was it? Then McGonigal doubles. I'm sorry. No, it goes. But this is backwards. I'm sorry. With 2 outs, you have Kevin McGonigal who doubles. Whatever. Then you have the single by Gleyber Torres. Then you have that. So that let in 3 of the Tigers' 5 runs. That is what it is in that inning. A little bit of BABIP luck, but also again, you gave up 3 hits in an inning. The Tigers turned those hits into runs. That's what they are doing. That's what the Guardians are not doing right now. You walked Javi Baez. That run ended up being part of a run that scored. Walking Javi Baez should be a crime. Let's be very honest about that.
I was okay with sending Tanner out, but I think the situation is.
I was too.
When his pitch count is as high as it is, I've talked about this before. You got to have someone already warming. After walk 1, I would have yanked him. Like that's just why, because he hadn't walked anyway. And Tanner has the lowest walk rate. Yeah. And he has the lowest walk rate on this team. He is the best pitcher on this team in terms of control. So the minute that first walk came out, I would have had. And go listen to yesterday's show. I even convinced Justin before the show went on. Again, I'm not saying Matt Festa is good, but the reason they went with Festa there is because they couldn't afford another walk, and he is the best control pitcher out of the pen right now. So I understood why they went to Festa, and the runs aren't really on Festa. That's again on the bad play at third. So, but he should have, if that's where you're going to go, if that's the player you're going to, they should have gone to him after walk 1.
Yeah, and Festa gave him a hit, but that run arguably shouldn't have scored anyway if the play is made. That the inning's over right there. So it's not on Festa and it's not on Tanner. I mean, is it on Tanner that he walked Javi Baez? Yes, it is on him for that reason. Walking Baez is not good. And this is the problem. The team does not allow itself margin for error. Like when you talk about all these things, that's the problem with what this team is. They don't leave themselves any margin for error, because if you look at any of these things in a vacuum, okay, he walked a guy, or okay, they didn't make a play at third. Those are things that ideally in a vacuum don't necessarily kill you. But when you compound all of them, they do kill you. Other teams might be able to overcome them, but you can't have an inning where you walk Javi Baez and also make an error at third. You know what I mean? Like if you gotta find your way out of that. You got to make those plays. And then you hit Riley Green early in the game, and he comes around to score on a hit. A hit batter is the same as a walk. You can't walk guys. You can't hit batters. This team has been hitting a lot of batters lately too. But yeah, Tanner deserved better in general. Don't walk Javi Baez. Don't. Like you said, I think Vogt should have ganked him after the Baez walk, especially. But going out there, I had no problem sending him back out. Bring in Festa from McKinstry if you're going to do that. And like you said, Festa is not the one that screwed the pooch here. And then the offense. Like the offense did fine, but I think we can also acknowledge they went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Bazana got caught at second base, stealing, and it took a great throw to get there, but Dylan Dingle was a great catcher, so I expect him to make a great throw.
I mean, he's top 3 in baseball. He is top 3 in baseball. One can make a case, and defensively, he might be number 1.
He's going to get down ballot MVP votes for sure.
He should.
They left, yes, and at 2 points, I think at least at one point they had runners on first and second, nobody out, and then that was when Martinez, Bailey, and Rocchio all struck out.
Yeah,
2 fly balls. 2 fly balls would have gotten a run in there. All you do is 2 fly balls. So
Martinez
if you argue
that failed bunt on the first pitch,
yes,
that was pitched way out of the zone.
Yes, and then he took a pitch for a strike, and then he whiffed away to strike 3. Right. If you want to argue things individually here, look at this. So it's 6-4, right? But let's take away some runs off the board here. Let's take away the error from Jose at third base.
4-4.
Let's say yes, and then let's also say that Tanner doesn't hit Riley Green. Boom, you win the game. Or you don't walk Javi Baez, so the run doesn't even get there. Like I said, this team doesn't have margin for error. You can make one mistake, but they're compounding mistakes, and when they make a mistake, a lot of things blow up. So if they just get one of those if Rocchio and Bailey hit fly balls, guess what? One of those runs scores. Like there's just individual pieces they could be doing better in, and that's the problem with this team. They're disjointed, and they're also making mistakes that compound each other, and they don't have margin for error. They simply don't.
And it's like it's amazing how many of these recent games kind of shift on one moment like that. Like, or it's like Colin Holderman on Saturday, Craig Yoho on Sunday, then the Ramirez play today. And again, you're right. In the first inning, it's like if Martinez gets the bunt down, I mean, it's not guaranteeing that Bailey or Rocchio will have good approaches, but puts more pressure on the pitcher in that situation when the runner's already at third. It is a different level of pressure. And, for as much as some people like to hate on Patrick Bailey, he has still hit pretty well with runners in scoring position in those extreme high leverage situations. Maybe it changes things. I know talking with the San Francisco writer, when they got him, like San Francisco tried to work with him mentally to picture every at bat with like runners on, because there's such a noticeable difference. Like go up there and pretend like they were trying things like that to try to just make every at bat like that. But yeah, it's amazing how often the balls find a way to fall in for the other team in those moments. And Cleveland, I'm not saying that it's luck or anything, but because the other side of it is what the problem that Cleveland has is for a team that is not a power hitting team, they struggle to make contact. Like you can't even get batted ball luck if you don't put the ball in play. Bottom line.
Yeah, there's certainly no more guards ball, right? Like guards ball in 2022 and even 2024 was contact, forcing the other team into mistakes, and you were hoping for a home run. Now it's like, they have more guys in the lineup that for power. They're not getting to it all the time, but they also are losing their ability to make contact. And, some games they're drawing walks. Like tonight, they drew 7 walks. That's great. And 2 of them were off Jansen. They had chances late in the game against Jansen, who's not been a particularly great closer this year, even though he's one of the best of all time. And that sometimes that's their identity as an offense, is drawing walks. But that's generally it. Like that, they don't really have an identity otherwise. Like you said, for a team that doesn't hit for power, they don't make contact. They have run in the past, but they're not running as much now. Some of that's, part of Jose's injury and some other stuff. But
when we come back,
they don't really have a strong identity offensively.
No. When we come back, I got a fun stat to throw your way in terms of like the on base of it all, which will fit in perfectly into what we're planning for segment 2 anyways.
All right. Yeah. We'll talk more about why this team feels worse than they did a year ago. Maybe even they're not. We'll talk about what's bad and what isn't bad on paper. And we'll also get into some fun minor league stuff. So the entire show isn't just a complete downer. I think we all know running a business cannot feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems, managing software, especially if they're not designed to work together. Can't have one app for accounting, can't have another for inventory, can't have one for sales, and have none of them all connect together. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software. It's going to bring every part of your business together in a powerful platform. So you got sales, accounting, marketing, inventory, all that works in one place. It's going to help your team move faster. It's going to help you stay organized, and you can work on other parts of the business and growing that instead of managing pieces of software, because the best organizations know that success is not just about talent. It's about having everybody work towards the same goal. It's true in sports, just like it's true in business. And I don't know how many more times I can repeat this with the Guardians. They have talent, it feels like, and normally they have success. This year, they just got a lot of pieces on this roster. They're not talking to each other, that are not connected on the same page for whatever reason. Been very inconsistent. They probably need something like Odoo right now. Normally they have something like that, but great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. And Locked On Guardians is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a dinger today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Easy to play. You make a free pick on who you think is going to hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you get a profit boost using your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best Bet is all. You can make your free picks every day throughout the rest of Major League Baseball season. Daily Dingers, very easy and fun way to stay engaged with the everyday game. So following your favorite team, you're following other matchups across the league. Every game has somebody who's capable of going deep. And now you have the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. I took Munetaka Murakami as the free play on Daily Dingers. It just seems like an easy one, right? He hits home runs. He's fun. The White Sox are confident in playing well, and that's just easy way to go. As far as the Guardians go, the Tigers are favored by 1.5 runs on Tuesday. It's Foster, Griffin, and Framber Valdez. The over-under is 8.5. I'd probably take the Tigers and the over in that one. The Guardians also third in terms of predictions now in the division behind the Tigers and the White Sox. So that is where things fall right now. If you're ready to play your game today, join all the action on FanDuel. It's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball, swing for the fences. An official Major League partner of Major League Baseball. It's FanDuel. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts, and sticking with us even to the frustrating times, because we can all stick together and just kind of break it all down together. A little bit of group therapy. If you're interested in a little bit more, we've got some great offerings going on with the Everydayer Club. What is the Everydayer Club? Well, it gets you ad-free versions of the show on all your audio platforms, whether you listen to Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. You get an ad-free version of the show if you're an Everydayer. You also get the private listener Discord that has Guardians fans, listeners to the show, Jeff, myself, and a Discord channel for just about every show we have in the network that you can talk to other fans on, share stuff, and you get the insider texting, which gets you updates right to your phone through text message. So when news happens, if you just want to banter about frustrating stuff, that's all there as well. And we also do monthly insider video chats, so that's also a lot of fun as well. Go to LockedOnGuardians.supercast.com. Check the link in your show notes to learn more. All right, Jeff, let's hear this killer stat you got for me.
Okay, so, we were just complaining about contact rates. So, and just in general with the offense this year. And again, just because I'm saying something isn't the worst doesn't mean I'm saying it's good. Last year, their strikeout percentage was the highest the last 4 years at 22.6. This year, they're at 22.1. The walk rate last year was 8.3%. This year, it's 9.7. and their 94 WRC plus is their second best total of the last 4 years. Behind 2024 was actually where they were 100, a league average. They, even though the defensive rating is the third worst, only 2023 had a worse defensive rating. They have almost as much offensive WAR. They have a 12.9 in terms of hitter WAR offensively and defensively, as opposed to a 13.2 a year ago, and that's in, 40 less games. I will point out one thing though. So this is interesting. When you get into the win probability, there's a one called clutch, and last year Cleveland was a 3.55 in clutch. I'm assuming it's wins. It measures the whole clutch situation. A average team is 0, excellent is a 2. They were a 3 last year. They've been a 2.6 and a 1 this year. They're a negative 0.59. That's below average. So for the first time in 4 years, they're bad in those situations, and that's what we're seeing. A team, and again, it's like a lot of similar players, different players, but they're overall expected to have a better offense in spite of the terrible clutch data. Like their overall production is better, but the problem right now is, and again, I feel like they have spent a month pressing. I feel like now every time a guy goes up, you're ending up with pop-ups or short flies because they're making it easier. Like it should be the pressure on the pitcher because they're the one with their back up against the wall who can't make a mistake. But instead, too often, it feels like we're seeing the hitters go out and do something. So in spite of everything I said about like striking out and this and that, I can't break down the year more than that and compare it against other years. It doesn't allow me to do split seasons on Fangraphs that way. But I feel like what we're seeing is offensively, they're better. They just are. And I think they're significantly better because they're significantly worse in those runners in scoring position situations. So that one area is worse, but they're better overall, which must mean that like that one area is much worse. So overall, much better, but they got to figure that out. I mean, that's why you traded for Joe Adell and Nathan Lowe, two guys who were specialists at that. I would have said Bazana didn't get the job done today, but he actually, before the trade, we had their best WRC plus of anyone in those high leverage situations before trading for Adell and Lowe. So, at some point, hopefully the dam will break a bit on this. We do know that there is a degree of, Dick Kramer, I think, was the guy who invented Stats Inc. And like one of his first works was this idea that like every hitter is pretty much the same when it comes to clutch. And I've debated that at points, and I got to look at some updated views on it. But right now it's just going poor for them. And I think sometimes it is like a snowball, right? Like it just picks up momentum as it goes downhill.
Yeah, Stephen Vogt said he thinks everyone's been pressing. Everyone's been trying to do more than they should. Everyone's kind of trying to put a little bit more on themselves. And I absolutely believe that as well, because they know where the standings are. I know a lot of these athletes will sit there and say like, oh, we're not, looking at the standings. We're not looking at that. We're just trying to show up each day and play our best and win that day's game. That they're going to say all those cliches, but let's be honest. They absolutely know where they're at. You can say that all you want. Everybody's human and they know exactly what's going on. And that's why this year feels worse than last year, because they had the dramatic come from behind win last year in terms of the division, right? And they are absolutely better. They're better on paper. Unfortunately, games aren't played on paper, but we've talked about this, I think, off air and on air multiple times. 25 Rocchio for the most part. 26 was better Rocchio until, second half when he's fallen down a black hole.
And he's going to be the same guy. He's going to be an 80 WRC plus guy. He is he's a utility backup. Like, we'll save this talk for another day, but it's like, he's imploded
worn off.
He's the worst hitter on the team since May.
The sunshine and rainbows have worn off on Rocchio, but for the first half, he was better this year than he was a year ago. Bazana is an upgrade over Arias if you just kind of switch the positions there in terms of Rocchio moving over. Chase the Lauder. Yeah, I don't have to say that much more than anything else, right? Because
Are you sure? Everyone loved Nolan Jones.
Well, okay. Much. He's not. He's going to wind up not hitting 20 home runs like I thought, but he hit his 13th tonight. We'll see if he can have a hot streak at the end.
He's on pace between 16 to 18, depending on where you look.
Yeah. Better in terms of Nolan Jones and John Kensington from a year ago. Quan last year was great in the first half. Now he's great in the second half, which is really weird. But yes, on paper, I would say Bailey's been better than Naylor too in terms of defense and a little bit of offense too. So yes, they're better on paper, but as we've argued off air too, is that okay? The bullpen is okay. They're decent. They're not great. This team is used to having a great bullpen, and defensively, those things have been a downgrade too. I mentioned this on Sunday show or Monday show, and I credited you because you're the one who texted me this. But Ruben Rocchio from second to short. Yes, he's good, but he's not as good at short as he is at second. Bazan is a downgrade at second. Santana was great defensively. Manzardo and Hoskins and Lowe are not. Kwan from left to center, yes, he's doing fine, but you expose left field, more defensive issues. I will say the downgrade in right field defensively to DeLauder from Jones to Noel is hilariously bad. So they've gone from, the margins have fallen off. The bullpen's not elite. It's okay. The defense is okay. It's not great. And the offense has improved, but not enough to make up for those areas. And, Slade Ciccone was struggling at points this year. Cantillo's been good. At the beginning of the year, Bibee got a little bit unlucky. The pitching staff overall remains the same, the strength of this team. So they've just got less margin for error. And when you include some bad luck on batted balls with runners in scoring position and lack of productive outs, more strikeouts, that's going to compound itself. So I want to point this out too before we move on to other things at some point, Jeff. So last year, actually, I'll save this. I got some other things to point out about 26 compared to 25, and then we'll talk about some minor league stuff because there are some good things going on, some things that Jeff and I may have gotten wrong, some things we may have gotten right, and some things that I think everybody else is overlooking as well. Big thank you to our friends at Amazon for today's limited break. Back to school season is here. Spend less on your kids with Amazon because the back to school shopping experience can be crazy. You get a couple items on your list to start, and all of a sudden you've got supplies, and you're like, oh, I need clothes. And then, oh, you need lunch stuff. And then there's tech and other things you just don't see adding up for your kids, and it really gets there fast. I've been saying it all summer long, right? I can't believe the school season is coming back and is back in some places. And I know all teachers and the parents have a lot to buy. They're all spending a lot of money. So you want to team up together, make the classroom costs just a little bit lessen the burden on teachers paying out of their pocket. Because, you don't go to work and buy a lot of your computer and other work supplies, but they do it in teaching, especially in Ohio, which is strange. I know there's other states have that too, but everybody can help lessen the burden together with Amazon's low back to school prices. You want to spend less on your kids because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. If the Guardians frustrate you and maybe you don't want to watch the entire game, you just want to hear what's going on and some other developments in the system, we got you covered. All you got to do is subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell to get notified of when videos go live, whether they're reaction videos, episodes, and then auto download all your favorite audio platforms. Keep the show in your feed. And even if you don't catch the show that day, you can go back and listen, or if you auto download it, just helps us anyway. So we would appreciate that, whether you're checked in or out on this season at this point. So Jeff, the one thing I wanted to point out too is that somebody from the News Herald actually asked me this about, felt like last year there were more highs, and last year's they had bad streaks. So, in 2025, Jeff, they had a 10-game losing streak, right? That was the middle of June to the middle. Yeah, that was the 25 here. It was the end of June to beginning of July when they had that 10-game losing streak, right? And then they had a 10-game winning streak in the middle of September to the end of September. That's where things got really good. So, yeah, you won 10 in a row, you lost 10 in a row. Pretty crazy. They were 15.5 famously back of the division a year ago. And ironically, as far as being under 500, they were 8 games under 500. That was their low mark. And that was when the 10-game losing streak hit 10, was they were 8 games under 500 a year ago. So they had they had some highs and lows last year. This year, it's been a little bit of a different story. So their season high winning streak so far is 7, not as high as 10, but their season high losing streak this year is 5. And they just dropped to 4 games below 500 for their worst mark of the season. And now they're 5 games behind the White Sox. I don't know if they won or lost their game tonight, but they're either 4 or 5 games back behind the first place team in the AL Central. So ironically, this year, the lows haven't been as low. The highs haven't been as high in terms of win streaks, but They haven't been behind the division as far. They haven't had as many losing streaks, or at least in terms of, or I shouldn't say as long of a losing streak. So I think this year feels more frustrating because it's more consistently frustrating. The only thing they've been consistent about this year has been inconsistent, right? Like, yes, they haven't lost 10 in a row, but they've lost 5 in a row. And it seems like every week we get these couple of games where they finish a series out strong, or they start a series out good, and they fail at the end or the beginning, and they can't put it together. And again, there's more expectations this year, right? Because, and there should be, I think there absolutely should be more expectations this year. Even though last year was a garbage year for the most part, up until the end, they won the division. The expectation should be to win the division again after that. And they won it in 24. And we keep saying the roster's better on paper. You want all these young kids. And yes, you got to realize that when you go with a young roster, which they do every year, they can say, well, our roster's young. Well, that's just how your franchise is run, let's be honest. But you have a pretty talented core, even though they're young. So I think that's why frustrations are much higher, because the expectations exist, and the expectations are fair. And fair or not, they're not meeting them. But the lows were lower a year ago. They're more frustrating this year than not as low because of all those factors. So, and recency bias kicks in a little bit too. Got a lot more to say on this subject. We can get to it later in the week.
No, it's all fair points. And listen, it's not been fun since the All-Star break. Like, there's no way around it. Like, this team felt great heading into the All-Star break, right? Like, they just knocked off the Marlins, our hottest team in baseball. They were on a good stretch. Everything was feeling really good heading into the All-Star break. And then it's been not so much afterwards.
They lost 14-18 now.
Yeah, and they even had a decent run after the All-Star break. We forget about that. The first few games, it's pretty much since Jose and Angel have come back that the bottom of the boat fell out. And not to say that things were great overall. I mean, from May 1st, or basically since June 1st, I think they've been a sub 500 team. But, they still have the easiest schedule in baseball. They still have, a lot of ways to make it to the postseason. I didn't pick them to win the division, but I thought they would make the postseason. I mean, with their loss today,
right now
I think they're 2.5 back. They've tied to the Orioles, with this little 3-game losing streak, and being 2-8 in their last 10. Like, it's a bad run. They're behind the Tigers, they're behind the Twins, but because of and the Rangers currently have the 3rd spot. But if you pay attention to any team outside of Cleveland, which some people do, some people don't. I mean, I know I see people all the time who talk about, oh, this team in platooning. And I'm like, guys, the Dodgers and Yankees platoon. Like, that's baseball anymore. Like, you can be mad about it and not like it, but that's every team is platooning. But if you pay attention, like I just, Bryce at Locked On Rangers is a friend, talk with Bryce. Bryce was saying that team should tear it down and sell before the trade deadline because they had such a rough run. The Dodgers have been terrible since getting Scooble. Like, yes, this is a longer stretch. This is a worrisome stretch. I am no longer like, I think this team's going to make the postseason. I'm like, I'm not feeling great right now. But the baseball season is long and it's weird, and every team has some degree of 2 to 3 stretches like this. I mean, the Red Sox are the hottest team in the world, and they were written off for dead after month 1.
Yeah, they were supposed to trade everybody. Yeah. Everybody wanted Cleveland to trade for, Aroldis Chapman at one point. So
I wanted Whitlock.
Yeah. All right, I wanted a lot of guys too, and it just didn't happen. All right, let's get to some minor league stuff, because there's some interesting thing happened in the minor leagues on Tuesday night. So the headline everyone's going to look at is Ryan Cesarini. If you're a box score watcher, and you should be at nextyearincleveland.substack.com. By the way, we cover every single game every single day in the Guardians minor league system, and you get it right to your email. So check that out. And he had 3 home runs, which is great, and 1 was off a position player. But even 2 legitimate home runs is fun. I think the Guardians get a lot of flack, and rightfully so, for a couple of years about how they don't develop hitting. I would argue, Jeff, this year they have developed hitting much better than pitching. Braylon Doughty, thankfully, is going to come back and pitch Thursday after some arm fatigue, so that's good news. But if you look around the system this year, like Aaron Walton to me has been the best development this year. We had Bazzana and Delauder. I know he was on the playoff roster at the end of last year, but those 2 guys are in the majors contributing. Angel now is in the majors and contributing. Cooper Engel got his way up for a little bit, didn't work out. We'll see what happens, long term there. Cleo Watson, people really liked him. He struggled a little bit, but I think he's really made leaps and strides this year as well. Cody Huff has made leaps and strides this year in the minors. Welbyn Francisca this year. I should mention Aaron Walton first. Aaron Walton, to me, had a grand slam, and Pittsburgh's AA team, Altoona, stinks. Let's be honest about that. But his strikeout rate so far in AA is lower than it was in high A by 4%. He's hitting for power. He's walking. And we know Walton can play all three outfield spots. He runs well. That's been by far the best player in their draft class in 2025 and the best development out of that. And then, Welbyn Francisca, you and I have both been down on him. He now has 15 home runs this year. He is impacting the ball. Defensively, he's better than Juan Brito. I don't know how much better he is than Juan Brito defensively, but that's been a fun development this year for him. And I've been lower on him than most people industry-wide, and he's been a great development this year. So if you just look across the board offensively, this team has had fun developments in the minors. Churio, Curley, Ralphie, Watson.
Luke Hill before he got hurt. I mean, he was the first guy to get promoted.
Luke Hill before he got hurt. Yeah.
Not for his injury, maybe putting him on par with
top
with
10. Yes.
Walton,
Uniker Caceres everyone's fallen in love with
Arias.
Him. They've had Robert Arias before he got hurt too. The Guardians have had a great year developing offensive players. Will it continue? And as they move up, that's something to be seen. But I would say the hitting has been very good in the system this year. And outside of Doughty, you had Campbell, who really came back healthy, which was great, but he's hurt right now. Franklin Gomez was really good before the injury too, but Cal Steven was struggling before the injury and he got hurt. Yorman Gomez has been kind of a disappointment. Yeah, Franklin did. I would say Yorman Gomez has been kind of a disappointment, only from the fact that he's still in the rotation. You and I have talked multiple times. He needs to be.
Yeah, him and the Braves. Please just put him in the pen, please.
Yes, I agree. They're both relievers. They should do it sooner than later. But I would say by far the hitting development this year has far exceeded the pitching development, which is a surprise. Franco Alamán finally made the majors this year, which, for some of his ups and downs, it's been, okay.
And it's not just, we can always, minor leagues can be fool's gold, but like Hanau has not looked out of place, right? It's, it's early. Things can change, but he has looked great.
Great walk in the ninth inning.
I think he should just make him your everyday shortstop. Like, let's not fuss around. He is your shortstop of the future. I am convinced of that. So there we go. Bazana, listen, he struggles with lefties, and has he been as hot as he was at the early going? No, but like he has shown a professional approach. He's still, doing some damage. Chase has been constant all year and healthy. Like, some rooks have come in. It's like, sure, Watson and Engel came up and had their moments, but then went back down. But they have been, the players are making the impact at the big league level, which is also important. And then, Ralphie, he's got some work to do to hit some, things other than four-seam fastball, but
he's knocking on the door though.
He is a guy, and Churio, I mean, he is a guy who maybe we wrote off a little too quickly a year ago. That's one that I think I probably jumped ship a little too much. And then, I doubted Walton, and now Walton's a top 10 guy. Like, I think that's fair. And, Walton, Curley, and Hill have made that at least an interesting class with those three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of good development. We'll have a lot more to cover in terms of the minor leagues. I think every day at this point, we're going to try to dive in on some minor league stuff because it's a little frustrating to follow the major league team. And we're getting to the end of the year, so we can kind of get a clearer picture of what's happened this year in the minors. So I think it'll be more fun to dive in on that. And let's just hope this team still has a hot streak in it. I mean, do they? They haven't had it yet. I think 7-game winning streak is good, but I think they have to have a better stretch in them, and it has to come soon.
Yeah, it is a frustrating team. I feel like every game gives me anxiety. Like I'm to that point with this team where it's just every single game. Just for the record, Cleveland's strength of schedule is no longer they're still 30th for strength of schedule. So there's still opportunities for this team.
Depends on when you play teams. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's when you play a team.
Yeah, but at this point, those teams are kind of, we have more data on them.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back tomorrow. More Guardians, Tigers, if you dare. And we'll continue to dive into the minors, keep you updated on the prospects who are doing well, what we think of the system overall. And, we'll get into even more there. And if you have questions about that, feel free to ask them so we can dive in and answer those.
Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. And go Guardians, go. And your obscure tiger, put it in Guardian Tiger Guy. Put it in the comments below.